Why do Filipinos keep voting for bad leaders? It's a question that sparks debates every election season. Every 3 or 6 years, the cycle repeats. Campaigns flood the streets, jingles play everywhere, candidates promise change. And yet, many of the same types of leaders win. Some say it's the voters' fault. They don't know better. Others argue it's the system. No matter who you vote for, corruption always thrives. But the truth? It's more complicated than that. To really understand why Filipinos keep voting for bad leaders, we need to go deeper into history, poverty, culture, psychology, disinformation, and the very structure of the political system itself. Because if we don't understand the roots of this cycle, we'll never break free from it. So today, let's dig in. Let's begin with history. For more than 300 years, the Philippines was under Spanish rule. During that time, political power wasn't shared. It was concentrated in the hands of a few, the landlords, known as the Principalia. These elites collected taxes, enforced Spanish laws, and in return, they gained prestige and control over entire towns. Ordinary Filipinos, peasants, and farmers depended on them for protection, food, and survival. This created what was called the cacique system, a kind of feudal structure where loyalty was exchanged for favors. And if that sounds familiar, it should. Because it's the root of patronage politics that still exists today. Instead of empowering citizens, the system trained people to rely on powerful figures in exchange for favors. When the Americans came in 1898, they introduced elections and what looked like democracy, but only the wealthy could run for office. The same elite families from the Spanish period simply adapted, now campaigning and winning seats. Even political parties weren't built on ideology. They were built around personalities and interests of elite families. And sadly, this pattern never disappeared. By the time the Philippines became independent in 1946, the country already had a deeply entrenched political class. Families that gained power during Spanish times kept it under the Americans and passed it down through generations. So when people ask, why are there so many political dynasties in the Philippines? The answer is simple. Because the system was designed that way from the very beginning. This brings us to the present. In the Philippines, politics often feels like a family business. Studies show that around 70% of Congress is controlled by political dynasties. From the Marcoses, to the Aquinos, to the Estradas, to the Dutertes. The same surnames dominate elections. And why do they keep winning? One reason behind their continued success is simple. Name recall. When voters see a familiar surname, it feels safer, like a brand you've known for years. Even if the track record is questionable, the familiarity creates trust. Take Joseph Estrada, for example. Before entering politics, he had a long and highly successful career as a film actor, starring in over 100 movies. He often played a tough guy or a Robin Hood-like hero, fighting for the poor against corrupt elites. That persona of him beloved by the masses, giving him immense name recognition and goodwill. He first entered politics in 1969, elected mayor of San Juan, a position he held for nearly 2 decades. In 1987, he became a senator, then served as vice president from 1992 to 1998 under President Fidel Ramos. Finally, in 1998, he was elected president of the Philippines with an overwhelming majority, the largest margin of victory in a free election in the country's history, despite controversies and later being ousted over corruption. Estrada's image as the underdog, the man of the masses, stayed firmly in people's minds. And he even returned to win as mayor of Manila years later. Or consider the Marcos family. Ferdinand Marcos Sr. served as president from 1965 to 1986, one of the longest-serving leaders in Philippine history. His time in office was marked by ambitious infrastructure projects, a strong centralization of power, and the controversial declaration of martial law in 1972. When his presidency ended in 1986, many thought the Marcos name might remain a sensitive or divisive topic in politics. Yet decades later, his son Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr. successfully ran for the presidency in 2022. How did this happen? Over time, through continued involvement in politics, public presence, and family influence in their stronghold of Ilocos Norte, the name stayed familiar to the public. For many voters, that familiarity translated into recognition, trust, and even a sense of connection. And then there's Manny Pacquiao. His story is a powerful example of how personal narrative and public image shape political appeal. Growing up in extreme poverty, Pacquiao rose to become a global boxing legend. This rags-to-riches journey resonates with millions of Filipinos who see him as a symbol of hope, proof that hard work and faith can change a life. In the ring, his victories were felt nationwide. During major fights, the Philippines would often come to a standstill, with crime reportedly dropping and the country sharing a sense of unity and pride. Pacquiao leveraged this popularity to enter politics, winning a House seat in Sarangani in 2010 and later being elected senator in 2016. For many voters, his story and visible generosity made him feel authentic, someone who truly understood the struggles of ordinary people. His fame also gave him an edge in a crowded political field. For Filipinos frustrated with traditional politicians, Pacquiao represented someone who could fight for the common person, just as he had fought in the ring. So think of it like brand recognition. When you go to the supermarket and see a new product versus a brand you've known for years, chances are you'll trust the familiar one. Politics works the same way. Add to that the reality that the Philippines doesn't have strong political parties. Parties don't really stand for clear ideologies or policies. They're often just vehicles for personalities. So in the end, elections become less about platforms and more about popularity. But let's be honest, it's not just about names in history. Poverty plays a huge role. Millions of Filipinos live day to day, struggling to make ends meet. In that reality, long-term promises about economic reform or infrastructure feel abstract. But if a candidate hands out cash, groceries, or short-term help during the campaign, that's something immediate, something real. That's why vote buying remains so common. Cash, groceries, or short-term assistance can sway votes more effectively than a campaign platform. It's not just about greed. For a poor family, 1,000 pesos in cash today might mean food on the table tonight. That's hard to ignore. And it's not just during campaign season. Politicians often give away Christmas baskets with spaghetti, canned goods, and fruit salad ingredients. Others distribute bags of rice or provide school uniforms and supplies when the school year begins. These gestures may seem small, but for many struggling families, they're memorable. They create a sense of gratitude and loyalty that lasts until voting day. This is the idea of poverty and pragmatism. If the system has consistently failed to deliver, then a small benefit today may feel more valuable than vague promises of reform tomorrow. Education is another factor. Civic and political education in the Philippines is limited. Many voters don't have access to fact-based, critical discussions about candidates and policies. Instead, decisions are often based on what's seen on TV, on Facebook, or what's heard from neighbors and family. The result? Leaders with money and machinery have a huge advantage over those with better platforms but fewer resources. So when critics label voters as bobotante or stupid voters, they miss the point. Many are simply making pragmatic decisions in a broken system. Culture also shapes voting behavior. Filipinos have strong values of utang na loob or debt of gratitude. If a politician pays your hospital bills, repairs your road, or attends your barangay fiesta, many feel a deep obligation to repay them, often through their vote. even if that leader is corrupt or incompetent. The sense of personal obligation can outweigh broader concerns. Then there's the influence of celebrity culture. Filipinos love entertainment. That's why actors, singers, and athletes have an easy transition into politics. Joseph Estrada, Manny Pacquiao, Vilma Santos all benefited from star power. But beyond celebrity, there's something called the telenovela effect. Philippine politics often plays out like a soap opera. Candidates are framed as heroes, villains, or underdogs fighting against the odds. Campaigns turn into dramatic narratives. Sometimes even family feuds, and voters connect to those stories emotionally. And let's not forget the strongman mentality. Many Filipinos admire leaders who project toughness and discipline. This is why leaders like Rodrigo Duterte gained massive popularity. His image as a no-nonsense mayor who could clean up the streets appealed to those frustrated with crime and slow bureaucracy. His iron fist rhetoric resonated deeply with a population craving results. Because underneath the strongman appeal is something deeper, a craving for order. In a society where crime, corruption, and red tape feel overwhelming, people long for a leader who can cut through the chaos even if it means sacrificing democratic ideals. Of course, in today's world, media plays a massive role, and in the Philippines, social media is king. Platforms like Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok are the main sources of news for millions of Filipinos. But they're also playgrounds for disinformation. Political campaigns spend millions creating content that paints their candidates as heroes while spreading fake news about rivals. And because these platforms are designed for entertainment, memes, gossip, and viral videos often drown out serious political discussions. Another dangerous trend is historical revisionism. Some political families spend huge amounts of money rewriting history online, erasing past abuses, and presenting a polished version of themselves to younger generations. The past gets distorted, and many voters start to believe it. And because news consumption is often entertainment-based, serious discussions about policy get drowned out by celebrity gossip, scandals, and sensational headlines. When information itself becomes manipulated, how can people make informed choices? But even if voters wanted to make better choices, the system itself is flawed. Corruption is so widespread that many people have become numb to it. The mindset becomes, well, all politicians are corrupt anyway, so why bother? Elections also aren't fair battlegrounds. Vote buying, intimidation, and unequal campaign funding make it very difficult for independent or reformist candidates to win. In short, the playing field is rigged. But here's the good news. It's not all hopeless. In recent years, more Filipinos, especially the youth, are becoming politically aware. Social media may be a tool for disinformation, but it's also a tool for fact-checking, awareness campaigns, and grassroots activism. Movements calling for transparency and accountability are gaining ground. Independent journalists and educators are working hard to push back against propaganda. And little by little, you can see a shift. The road is long and the challenges are huge. But history shows us, no cycle lasts forever. The Philippines has one of the youngest populations in Asia, and that means the future belongs to those who refuse to accept the old ways. So, why do Filipinos keep voting for bad leaders? Because of history. Because of dynasties. Because of poverty, culture, disinformation, and weak institutions. But also because the system was designed that way, centuries ago. But here's the key point. Voters aren't stupid. They're responding to a broken system and to difficult circumstances. What looks like a bad choice from the outside is often the only choice that makes sense given their reality. The real challenge isn't just removing bad leaders, it's changing the system itself. That means stronger institutions, better civic education, and empowering citizens to make informed choices. Until then, the cycle may continue. But it doesn't have to stay this way. The future depends on us. Whether we choose to accept the old ways, or whether we demand real change. Thank you for watching. If you found this video meaningful, please like, share, and subscribe. And if you want to dig deeper into the forces shaping life in the Philippines, don't miss my next video. Why is the Philippines still poor? See you in the next one.